know that each year nature disasters such as drought, earthquake, flood, and etc. cause the world unbelievable figure of around $640 billion. This is almost twice the total GDP of Solomia. Now, have you ever thought that from where on the earth does all this money came from? Does it came from a public or private institution or wealthy individuals, or it's their organized system that constantly chart out this massive sum of money each year? Well, this is what we're going to find out today with my partner. Hi guys, I'm City by Bontise Dali.
And I am Langi Sherman.
Good morning everyone. Today we're going to discuss about climate finance. We all know that climate change is a global issue and it takes a high amount of money to mitigate its impact. We also know that not every country can afford this high amount of money, right? Especially the ones which are developing or the underdeveloping nation. So, what is climate finance? Climate finance is a finance that aims at reducing emission and enhancing sink of greenhouse gases and aims at reducing vulnerability of and maintaining and increasing the resilience of human and ecological system to negative climate change impacts. As defined by the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, Standing Committee on Finance. The term has been used in a narrow sense to refer to transfer of public resources from developing countries in light of their UN Climate Convention obligation to prove new and additional financial resources, and in a wider sense to refer to financial flow relating to climate change mitigation and adaptation. 21st season of the Conference of Parties to the UNFCCC Paris 2 2015 introduced a new era for climate finance, policy, and markets. The Paris Agreement defined a global action plan to put the world on the track to avoid dangerous climate change by limiting global warming to well below 2 centuries above pre-industrial level. It includes climate financing channeled by nation, regional, and international entities for climate change mitigation and adaptation projects and programs. They include climate-specific support mechanism and financial aid for mitigation and adaptation activity to spur and enable the transition toward low-carbon, climate-resilient growth and development through capacity building, R&D, and economic development. As of November 2020, development banks and private finance had not reached the US $100 billion per year investment stipulated in the UN climate negotiation for 2020. However, in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic economic downturn, 450 development banks pledged to the fund green recovery in developing countries. During the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change was addressed by 43% of EU enterprises. Despite the pandemic's effect on business, the percentage of firms planning climate-related investment rose to 47%. This was a rise from 2020, when the percentage of climate-related investment was at 41%. Now, this is where climate finance comes into play. So, in a broader sense, climate finance generally means that any types of financing that is used to tackle climate change. However, let's suppose if you have to be the development countries to developing economic in order to help them fight then the problem of climate change, such that of the greenhouse gas emission and at the same time help them to develop and invest in economic-friendly technology and resources such as wind and the solar power. You can consider it as a weapon that the individual and the nation use to fight this menace of climate change. Consider it as a weapon that the individual and the nation use to fight this menace of climate change. The next question that naturally comes to our mind is, where does all the finance come from? So typically, the money involved in the climate finance came from the developed countries that use private and public players such as the central bank, big corporation, enterprise to allocated funds. Now, a key milestone for climate finance was the Copenhagen Agreement, which was reached in 2009. So, in this agreement, developed countries pledged in impressive $10 billion per year until 2020 for these developed countries. And the good thing is that all this money was being used by developing countries to lessen the effect of climate change on their economics. Now, you will be thinking, what the point of all that this? I mean, who benefits from those tone and tone of money? That key idea or the objective behind climate finance is to help developing countries more toward those green energy sources and technologies that have lower carbon emission and at the same time, prepare them to financially deal with the adverse impacts of climate change, such as that of the flood and droughts, etc. Yes, it's kind of a win-win situation for developing countries. And support this fact, we have to get some number for you. In the year 2015 and 2016, Japan was the largest donor when it comes to climate finance. Giving around 10.3 billion per year on average over the 2 years period. And at the same time, India was a major beneficiary with income to receiving funds at the whopping, 2.6 billion per year. It was followed by Bangladesh, Vietnam, the Philippines, and the Thailand. And that's not it. In fact, recent tie to the topic climate finance has taken global importance. Why they say so? Because, according to the data from United Nations Economic Program or UNEP, global investment in the field of renewable energy and technologies up a whopping 2.5 trillion between 2010 and 2019. Now, you must understand that this trillion of dollars don't suddenly jump out of nowhere. In fact, there's a system in place that helps to turn out healthy finances for fighting climate change and develop climate infrastructure.
So what are they? Let's have a look. The first line are the banks who play a huge role in transferring capital overseas. Secondly, we have the financial markets such as that of the stock markets and real estate market that help set up the price of the energy commodities. And finally, we have the stock exchanges that serve as a tool and investment in renewable energy companies such as that of Azure Power and Essent Solar companies. Now, beside this traditional option that we just discussed, there are certain instruments that do play a vital role in helping climate finance, and this includes the following. Number one, the green bonds. This is kind of debt bond issued by public or private institution, basically for environmental purpose such that fighting climate change. The next is number two, the concessional loans. It's a kind ESA loan given for carrying out climate control activities, and they have a larger repayment period and lesser interest rates. And finally comes the grants and donation to fight climate emergency, So you see, it's a very organized mechanism. And now, if for some reason, let's say, you still feel that climate finance is just wastage of money and carries no significant impact, then let me tell you that climate change can have a serious impact on world economies, some of which include the following. The first is decrease in global GDP by 18% if the global temperature rises by 3.2%. Another one is the loss of trillions of dollars from the coastal economies if the global sea level rise. Seem like the world need a collective help, doesn't it? And that's why, guys, the rule of climate finance becomes all that more crucial. So, climate finance provides countries across the world the necessary financial resources to fight the harmful effect of climate change through activities such as purification of pollutants that exist on land, air, or water. Another thing is that reducing the use of fossil fuels. Also, curbing harmful emissions such as that of greenhouse gases. However, as optimistic as it may sound, climate finance is a costly affair. Experts feel that a whopping $100 billion is required each year to fund these climate investments. And it's fair to say that most of the countries can't afford that luxury. And this means that all this financial burden actually fall on the shoulders of developed countries such as that of the US and Japan. However, even with some of its loopholes, one thing is for sure that climate finance is real and is here to stay. And if you think otherwise, then let's take a real life scenario where climate finance is in action. So, you must have heard that developed countries such as North America and Europe have often issued statements that they want developing nations to reduce their dependency on coal-based power plants for energy generation, right? Yes, it's a typical godfather-like bullying tactics of developed nations. However, developing countries might argue that these developed countries achieve their own energy generation goals by exploiting coal and other natural resources during their industrialization, and is where it would be the moral duty of developed countries to help the developing economies invest in more eco-friendly energy sources.
Now, this is how you know climate finance